The Temple Mount is in our hands. We are in Jerusalem, and we are here to stay.
June 2025. No press, no ceremony. Benjamin Netanyahu vanishes from the public eye and reappears beneath the Al-Aqsa Mosque, not with soldiers, but with archaeologists, engineers, and rabbis. Their steps echo through a narrow stone corridor. Dust rises. Old air meets new. A steel gate slides open. A chamber waits below. The team moves in. Heads low, lights tight. These are not tourists. They carry folders, scans, and quiet orders. A map unfolds against the wall. Lines cross, circles mark hidden rooms. Someone whispers, "Begin here." The cameras you know are not here. This visit is not for headlines. It is for groundwork, the kind that changes history before anyone sees it, the kind that shapes what comes next. Netanyahu stops at a carved block set into bedrock. An expert speaks in a calm voice. This platform aligns with ancient plans. Another adds, support columns are stable. Reinforcement can start. A rabbi places a hand on the stone and says nothing at all. Above them, a city moves like any other day. Below, the past and the future share the same floor. Tunnels reach out like veins. Doors wait behind dust and iron. A choice stands in the dark. He breathes in. He nods once. And the work begins. But on which plan? Days before that descent, a meeting took place where few ever walk. Not in the Knesset, not in any public hall. This was a sealed chamber, near the Davidson Center, just south of the Temple Mount. The room was bare stone, thick walls, and no windows. Inside sat a group rarely seen together. Israel's chief rabbinate, leaders of the Temple Institute, senior IDF advisors, and key archaeologists. At the far end, foreign observers from Europe and the United States listened in silence. A single table held rolled parchments, satellite prints, and ground-penetrating scan reports. The archaeologists spoke first, confirming what had been suspected for decades but never proven. Beneath the dome of the rock lies a platform cut from bedrock. Dimensions match descriptions from the First Temple period. Some believe it to be the actual foundation stone of Solomon's temple. The room shifted. One IDF advisor warned of unrest. A rabbi answered softly, "History will not wait for peace." Netanyahu leaned forward. His words were measured. "We're not building over, we're building beneath. If we wait any longer, we deny history." The decision was made that night. No public vote, no press release. Within days, the first teams entered the tunnels. Reinforcement began. Yet no one outside that room knew, and no one could imagine what they were preparing to uncover next. The entrance lay behind an unmarked gate near the western wall tunnels. Guards waved the group through without a word. Down a narrow shaft, the air grew colder. Light fell across rough-hewn walls, the marks of ancient chisels, still visible. What most pilgrims see of the Temple Mount is only a fraction of its reality. Beneath the plaza lies a labyrinth, tunnels, chambers, and columns that have stood silent for centuries. Some are natural caves. Others were cut by hand, stone by stone, to bear the weight of a temple long gone. Netanyahu stepped into one of the largest chambers. Engineers circled the perimeter, pointing to fresh reinforcements along the ceiling. New steel blended with ancient limestone. "These supports will hold," one of them said quietly. Against the far wall stood a block unlike the rest. Massive, polished smooth, its edges perfect. The archaeologists believed this could be part of the same platform described in 1 Kings, where Solomon laid the temple's foundation.
Maps were unrolled, showing a series of restoration projects already marked to match Ezekiel 40:43's measurements. Here, scripture wasn't just read, it was being measured into stone. Above, the world saw nothing. Below, prophecy was being plotted in silence. And somewhere in this maze, a sealed chamber was waiting, untouched for 2,000 years. The scans had shown something unusual, a hollow space buried deeper than any mapped tunnel. Access was blocked by a wall of ancient stone, its mortar older than the Second Temple. For years, it was dismissed as an anomaly, but the latest LiDAR imaging told a different story. The chamber had structure, symmetry, and dimensions that matched a long-debated legend. One archaeologist whispered to Netanyahu, "If this is what we think it changes everything." Work crews moved with precision, clearing debris without disturbing the surrounding walls. The IDF detail posted at the entrance kept all non-cleared personnel away. Each fragment removed was cataloged, scanned, and sent for analysis. No photographs leaked, no word reached the press. When the final stone gave way, the team stared into darkness. Dust drifted like smoke in the beam of their lights. The room inside was perfectly square, its floor sunken, its walls marked with faint etchings no one could yet decipher. A rabbi stepped forward, his voice unsteady. "This matches the writings of the ancients." Netanyahu didn't answer. His gaze swept the chamber as if weighing both the promise and the peril. If the rumors were true, this was more than archaeology. This was the waiting place of something sacred, and possibly something dangerous.
In the stillness of that underground square, a set of scroll copies was unrolled across a portable table. They weren't there for ceremony, they were blueprints. Ezekiel 40-43, line by line, describing measurements, gates, and courts, every span, every cubit, written nearly 2,600 years ago. An engineer traced his finger along the diagrams. Look here, the inner court, and here, the outer. His colleague compared it to the chamber's dimensions. The match was unsettlingly close. One rabbi quoted Daniel 9:27. He will confirm a covenant with many for 1/7. In the middle of the 7, he will put an end to sacrifice and offering. He lowered his voice. If this is to be fulfilled, the offerings must first begin, and that means the temple must exist again. Netanyahu listened without speaking. The prophecy wasn't abstract here, it was inches and meters drawn into the stone
Israeli
itself.
Prime Minister Benjamin
The plan,
Netanyahu has
as
shown
whispered among those present, was not to replace the mosque above, it was to build beneath, layering prophecy over history. To some, it was a miracle, to others, a provocation. Above ground, prayers continued at the western wall. Below, the first quiet steps of a project that could shake nations were being taken. And still, one question hung in the stale air. What exactly would be brought into this place? For decades, the claims of explorer Ron Wyatt lingered on the fringe, dismissed by many, obsessed over by a few. He had said the Ark of the Covenant lay hidden beneath the Temple Mount, sealed in a chamber by divine design until the appointed time. Most in the archaeological world had laughed, but now new scans showed chambers exactly where Wyatt described them. The dimensions aligned, the location matched, and one chamber sat directly beyond the newly opened square room. The team halted at its entrance. Thick stones sealed it tight. The surface bore markings, faint, weathered, that matched illustrations from Wyatt's personal notes. No one said the word ark, but the weight of it hung in the air. A senior rabbi turned to Netanyahu. If this is here, it will not stay hidden forever. Netanyahu's answer was measured. Then we will decide when the world is ready to know. In the glow of their lamps, the possibilities were almost blinding. This wasn't just history, it was a covenant artifact tied to the very heart of worship in ancient Israel and to the visions of the prophets. The engineers marked the spot, then sealed it again. For now, the secret would remain buried, but not for long. While the chambers beneath the mount stirred with secrecy, Another part of Jerusalem had been quietly preparing for decades. Inside the Temple Institute, glass cases held objects that seemed almost out of place in the modern world. A golden menorah, the table of showbread, priestly garments woven in white and blue, the high priest crown, and the altar of incense. These were not ceremonial props. Every piece had been crafted to exact biblical specifications, ready for use the moment a temple stood again. To the untrained eye, they were museum pieces. To those in the know, they were a countdown. In recent weeks, activity inside the Institute had shifted. Sources spoke of covered carts moving under heavy guard towards secure tunnels near the western wall. Officially, nothing was confirmed, but eyewitnesses claimed they saw crates being lowered into restricted areas, items wrapped in linen, carried with both hands as if fragile and sacred. One insider said quietly, "They're testing placement in the subterranean courts. This isn't rehearsal anymore." For centuries, the phrase, "next year in Jerusalem," was a prayer. Now, some whispered that next year might be the year, not for waiting, but for worship. And if the vessels were moving, it meant one thing: the space to receive them was almost ready.
It didn't take long for whispers to escape the tunnels. By the time fragments of the plan reached foreign capitals, the reactions were immediate and fierce. The United Nations called for an emergency session, warning that any unilateral action on the Temple Mount threatens global stability. The Vatican issued a careful but pointed statement, urging respect for all sacred spaces. In the Islamic world, leaders in Iran and Turkey denounced the developments as desecration. Speeches promised retaliation. Crowds gathered in protest. Yet, an unexpected voice entered the conversation. A coalition of scholars from Saudi Arabia and Jordan released a joint statement. If the mosque remains untouched, and the temple rises beside or beneath it, then perhaps prophecy can be fulfilled without violating sanctity. It was a position that would have been unthinkable only years ago. Inside Israel, the news deepened divides. Some saw the project as destiny, others as dangerous provocation. Netanyahu's office remained silent, neither confirming nor denying what was unfolding underground. But one thing was clear. The Mount had shifted from symbol to flashpoint, and every nation watching knew, if even one detail of the underground work came fully into the light, the balance in Jerusalem could tip overnight. The question was no longer if the world would react, but how soon. For Christians watching from every corner of the world, the reports out of Jerusalem carried a different weight. These weren't just political moves or archaeological breakthroughs, they were mile markers in a prophetic timeline. Pastors opened Daniel 9:27, pointing to the prophecy of a covenant, a pause and sacrifice, and the rise of a figure who would exalt himself in the temple. Others turned to 2 Thessalonians 2:4, warning that the Antichrist would seat himself in God's house, claiming to be God. The implication was sobering. If the temple's foundation was being laid, even in secret, the clock on Daniel's 70th week had begun to tick. In Bible studies from Texas to South Korea, believers whispered the same question. Could this be the generation Jesus spoke of in Matthew 24:34? The one that would see all these things come to pass? In Jerusalem, the silence of the underground teams spoke louder than any public statement. Each column reinforced, each chamber measured, was another step toward a moment foretold from millennia. And yet, the full picture remained hidden. What exactly would emerge from the shadows of the Mount? The answer, when it came, would not be quiet. Above the Mount, the midday call to prayer rose over Jerusalem's stone rooftops. Pilgrims pressed their hands to the western wall. Tourists took photographs. Life seemed ordinary. Beneath their feet, it was anything but. In the sealed chambers, new supports gleamed against limestone worn smooth by centuries. Markings on the floor traced the outlines of courts and gates. Covered crates sat in corners, awaiting placement. Somewhere in the darkness, a sealed doorway remained untouched, the one said to guard what Ron Wyatt had sworn lay hidden. Those who had seen it knew what opening it could mean. Those who hadn't could only speculate. Netanyahu's steps echoed through the tunnel as he left the site. He did not speak to the waiting aides. Above ground, cameras clicked and questions flew. He brushed past them all. That night, lights burned late in offices across Jerusalem, messages went out to embassies, markets shifted, prayer groups gathered. And somewhere in a quiet room, a rabbi unrolled a scroll and whispered a single verse. Truly I tell you, this generation will not pass away until all these things have happened. The next move would not be announced. It would be seen. And when it was, it would be too late to turn it back.